Everybody, welcome to Busy Lifting Sober. Busy Lifting Sober. Busy Lifting Sober. We are on episode 181 with Zach Crouch. How are you, Zach, today?
I'm great. Yeah, it's a wonderful day, and it's a pleasure to be on your show, Bizzy. I've listened to your show, and you do not lack energy, so I can definitely appreciate that. Definitely appreciate that.
You know, it's the crazy energy. I think it's the adrenaline that helps us get through life when we're going through it, right? Going through tough times, it's that adrenaline that just kicks in, right?
Absolutely.
So
and before
tell
you know
us.
it, it's 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock at night, and you're just like, all right, I'm ready for bed, man. Done.
Today, it's so crazy knowing that, like, I feel like the day, I don't know if they're longer or shorter. What do you think?
It has been great. Just to, like I was telling you before the episode started, you know, I've got like a little patio outside my house, and my wife and I will go out there in the evening while the kids are still playing. It's like 9 o'clock at night. It's still light outside here in Louisville. So that's been great. And like a thunderstorm came in last night. We're just sitting out there and just enjoying kind of the nature, you know, just it was great, man. It was beautiful actually, just to do that, you know, and not have to worry about, you know, it's kind of digressing, but not have to worry about like, where am I going to get dope from tonight? You know, that's beautiful. That's wonderful.
The freedom that we never, you know, we didn't know, at least I didn't know what kind of hell I was kind of living in, my own private prison, right? When those, because all we wanted to do was get our stuff, and how do we have enough, and where is it? And it's almost the 4th of July. It's a weird time to have the 4th of July, right?
Yeah, it is. It's extremely weird. And we'll do social distancing fireworks probably at our house this year.
Yeah, there aren't going to be any big, there won't be any big celebrations with fireworks and gathering. And I think there's a sadness, and we talked about that earlier too.
Yeah, for sure.
And this freedom that we have today, what does that mean to you? Like, what do you feel like?
You know, as we were talking about this before the episode started, it takes me time because, as I said, I'm kind of like you. I go, right? And until I just hit the pause button, either by choice or not, as the case is now, I don't realize how good I have it. And I don't mean that in a way that like I have stuff. I mean it in a way that, yes, I have real relationships today with people, right, that aren't based on what can I get from you and what can you get from me in that game that goes on, right, where I never feel comfortable, right. I was sharing with my wife last night. I was like, listen, I'm thinking about, because I'm operating right now, I just sold my desk, so I'm operating on really like a little slab of wood right here. It's amazing that my computer fits on this thing. And I was like, I want a really nice desk, you know. And we didn't get into this fight of, well, you know, you bought this last year and, you know, I want this year. It's like none of that took place. You know, I was honest, man. I was like, I really want this, you know, desk that I'm looking at. And it's going to be a little chunk of change. And we were cool with that, you know. So to have that, you know, versus going behind her back and, you know, spending a bunch of money that I probably, you know, shouldn't have, you know, or whatever the case is, I'm able to do that with her today. And that is a quantum leap for me from where I came when I first got into this process of recovery, right? I didn't even know if I wanted to be married, first of all. I certainly didn't want kids when I first got married, you know. And that became pretty apparent, you know, in the first 2 years of having kids, how tough it is. But now, you know, they're 7 and 2, and it's still challenging. But man, I look forward to just, you know, sitting on the couch with them and just being with them. You know, that's fun. That's a lot of fun.
So you mentioned there briefly what happened. So will you tell us what happened, what it was like, and what it's like now?
Yeah. So if I go back to probably like 1999, 2000, I was starting college then in Western Kentucky University. It's a town in Bowling Green here. It's probably 90 miles, maybe west of us, southwest of us. And, you know, I made a commitment early on. I was really going to study. You know, I was like, I'm going to really nail this thing. And I did so well. Like I got the dean's list. I had a 4.0. I was, you know, first couple of years, I was hovering right around like a 3.7, 3.8. So, I was really studying hard. And I was committed. And then by about 2001, I kind of learned how to study and, how to write papers and, just do the thing. And I noticed at that point, I was like, all right, I'm starting to go out to bars a little bit more, and right about that time I was starting it was like a graduate, basically paper with a professor. So I kind of worked up to that, and I had to do interviews with people, and I would come in hungover. So that was kind of a clue for me, but I just dismissed it. I was like, I'm still doing this. I'm still doing well in school, just whatever. So by about 2002, a buddy of mine who I'd been actually, drinking and using with, he kind of noticed. Like he was like, he's like, man, you've always got something in your mouth, like, you've always got something like, drink in your hand or whatever. I was like, yeah. And he was like, you might want to consider, because he's a little bit older. He's like, you might want to consider like just checking out like an AA meeting. So I was like, all right, whatever. So I checked out an AA meeting, and I was in one of those round robin, sort of scenarios, right? And I'm brand new. I've got like maybe a day or two sober at that point. Okay.
Will you tell us what a round robin is for those that don't know? What is a round robin?
Right. So just to kind of set up, so there's like 20 people sitting in a circle, and one person shares, and it usually goes left to right or right to left, whatever you have going on in that. And then when it gets to you, it's your opportunity to share about like kind of where you're at and what's going on. So my temporary sponsor, who I picked up like a day or two earlier from another meeting, I think, he's sitting right here, right? So he shares, and he's like, I'm glad to be here. I've got 10 years sober, whatever. I'm like, 10 years, man, that's a long time. So it comes to me next, right? And I stand up, and this is how kind of arrogant I am at the time. I'm like, this is a great meeting, man. I'm glad to be here. I appreciate you guys, but pretty sure I'm not an alcoholic, So my temporary sponsor at the time, he like literally stands up in the meeting, and he's kind of like, what do you mean you don't know if you're an alcoholic? And I'm like blown away, man. I'm like, whoa, like what's going on here? So I had a really bad experience, right? And at the end of the meeting, I had like people coming up to me, like saying like, man, we're sorry. He's usually not like that, So I was like, all right, I'm not coming back here again. So I kind of just dismissed, 12-step, recovery at the time. But the funny thing is how I think God works, call it God, your spiritual being, whatever, is that I had landed a job at the Warren County Drug Court, okay? And I was the drug tester, right? So I'd go in there and I'd watch, I'd go in the bathroom, watch people pee in a cup, So I go into these like drug testing, like court, scenarios or whatever. And I'd probably been there maybe 3-6 months, and I couldn't hold it together. Like I was coming in, and pretty much everybody who worked at the drug court, like was in recovery, right? Like the people running it. So I get a call from like my boss at the time, and I'd been late. And he was just like, dude, what's going on? And I was like, nothing, man. It's all good. I was like, what time do you need me there on Wednesday? And he was like, all right, just show up at this time. So I ended up showing up, and I ended up getting fired. Okay. And for good reason, because I was showing up and I'm setting the precedent, for these people going into pee in a cup who had been arrested, and I'm the guy that has the problem, right? So there's some discrepancy here, obviously. But what's interesting is that the same guy that I had watched pee in a cup the day before I got fired, big guy, like, his name is Joey. And Joey just, was larger than life, right? And I was so just disheartened after having gotten fired. I was like, all right, man, this program didn't work out. Let me try another meeting. So I go to that same meeting, and Joey is there at the front door, and I'm like showing up, and I'm like, oh crap, man, and he just kind of in a humorous way says like, what are you doing here, man? I was like, listen, bro, I'm pretty sure I'm one of you guys, And he, without hesitation, man, just gave me this huge bear hug. And I was like, I'm in the right place, man. You know, I'm in the right place. And that started my journey. And that was in 2002. I didn't get clean and sober until January 2nd, 2007, right? So 5 years went by. And, you know, some people need to go to treatment. I probably should have. But for me, it was a conversation that I had in about 2005 or 6 with my dad. And it wasn't even really a conversation. I walked into his house. This is his house, right? Beautiful home. And he had asked for like a CD that I had borrowed. This is back when we were listening to CDs. And he had asked for a CD back, right? And I look at him and I'm just like, you know, I've been running, man. I'm just all messed up. And you know what? I said to him, I said, listen, man, I ain't got your mother CD, right? And I said that to him in his house, right? And he said to me, he looked me dead in the eye. And he said, you know what, son? He said, get the F out of here right now and don't come back until you got your shit together. And I said, all right. And that I think paved the way for me to like finally just be like, this is too much, man. I'm 27 years old. I've got way too much going on, you know, and I'd been working like 2 jobs, probably 60 plus hours a week. And I was just like, this is just too much, man. So I was willing at that point to take some suggestion, you know. And, you know, it says, you know, in the basic text in the 12-step, you know, big book, it takes what it takes, right? And for me, that's what it took. It took me to get to the point of just being like, this is enough, man, you know? And I kind of had it in my head, like I was going to commit to a year of recovery, right? And then I was like, you know, I'll do this for a year, man, and I'll work your stupid steps. You know, I'll do whatever you want me to do. I'll stand on my head, you know, but I can't guarantee you that I'll be here after a year. But in that year, you know, I just started grad school. So I had the opportunity to actually go to meetings. And at that point, for me, it was like, why would I want to go back? You know, why would I want to go back? You know, yeah, there was times, and even now at 13 years of sobriety, of clean time, you know, my wife, who's not in recovery, you know, she'll crack open a bottle of wine or something like that. That sounds sweet, man, you know, to just share a bottle of wine, right? But I know for me, it would likely start the process again, you know, when I introduce chemicals into my system. So, you know, those moments last for a short time, you know, and it's typically like, for me, in high stress times where I'm like, yeah, that sounds good, you know. Like now, you know, there have been times throughout this past 4 months where I've been like, yeah, a bottle of beer or a glass of wine sounds pretty sweet right now, you know, just to forget about what's going on, you know. But I think that's my problem, is that like I would not be aiming to enjoy the experience with my wife. I'm aiming to like forget about stuff, man. And that's the difference, I think, for me at least. And a lot of other people, they drink to get to a certain point of not remembering stuff, you know, and that's what I wanted.
And you mentioned you have small kids, and given what's going on right now and being sober, I mean, thank God you do have the decade and whatever, almost a half that you've been sober, but you have small kids.
Right.
And that is, I mean, I'm sure 7-year-old used to go to school and you were on this routine that you had every day. I don't know if the little one went to babysitter, or you had a babysitter come in, or they went to daycare, whatever it was, but you had this routine, and all that came to a screeching halt. And you're like, oh my God, all right, now what? And what tools would you share with somebody who's out there who's like, all I do is go and I turn to that glass of wine, because at the end of the day, I am so beat. I can't take it anymore. I do want to turn it off, like you mentioned. I just want it all to stop. And that's medicating myself. So what do you do instead?
You know, I think similar to like my experience, and even in the early process of recovery, right, is it's so important for me, even now, especially as we were sharing before the meeting, you know, before this podcast started, is like I've recommitted to just reaching out to people, right? And that can be kind of tough, because I'm, as I mentioned before, I'm a pretty high, I think, pain tolerance, and that doesn't mean physical, you know, that means mental. Like I can take stuff, you know, and I'll be like, I got this, you know, or this is, you know, it's not a big deal or whatever. I'll just dismiss it, you know. And before I know it, I'm in some real pain, and I've had to go, you know, I've made some really dumb choices, and I need to go back and make amends to people that I don't want to, right? I think that I'm noticing now, like, you know, yeah, meditation and all that stuff helps. But noticing just those little pieces around, like, I'm starting to get a little discontent here. You know, I'm starting to feel the burn, whatever. I don't want to dismiss that anymore, right? You know, because I think that it comes down to me for, like, in a lot of ways, like a question of worth. It's like, you know, how much am I worth right now? Not like money wise, but like, you know, how much am I worth to not have to go through this pain? And I think, you know, my pain tolerance is becoming less and less because it's not necessary. I don't have to go through this by myself, right? It's not advised to do that. It's not smart to do that. So, you know, whether it's Zoom, whether it's a phone call, whether it, you know, it's 6 feet apart and you're in a meeting outside, do it, man. You know, just do it. Because, you know, this is not going to stop, I don't think, anytime soon, like, from what I can tell. You know, this is going to go on for a while. And I think the patterns that I set for myself now are going to bear fruit later on, you know, when I really am in some pain, whatever it looks like. And I've made those choices to be proactive about, you know, recovery. And recovery can mean so many different things. You know, as I mentioned, I bought a bike, you know, I'm going for walks, you know, and I think it's okay to not be on all the time, right? I think that's okay, you know. And that's not like a free pass. That's just saying, like, pumping the brakes is okay, you know, because I think that we're in a culture anyway where it's like you need to be on all the time, right? We've got instant message, we got phone, I mean, everything. So, right? So disconnecting from all that is, I think, a really good thing, you know. And I think it needs to be intentional too, like, not be like, you know, well, I'm going to wait until this gets done. It's like, no, dude, just stop for 15, 20 minutes, go outside, take a break, don't get on Facebook, you know, and just go for a walk, you know. And I think that if we're talking about, like, being productive, that feeds productivity, man. It helps my brain just to kind of put a small reset button on the day, you know. So that'd be what I do. And also reading, you know, a lot of literature in recovery. That's, I think, super helpful.
So do you and your wife, like, have a basket that you're like, all right, we're going to put the cell phones in here and we're turning it all off and we're turning off the computers and we're just going to be here and the plan like it used to be, you know, growing up. We didn't have all these things going on to do that.
No, we've got, it's funny you'd say that. We've got kind of like a look, you know, and it's like, if I'm at the dinner table and I'm like checking, you know, I'm like, all right, you know, all right, she's eating right now. She's probably not paying attention to me. Let me just see what this email is right here, you know, or whatever, you know. I'm looking at desks, like I said, so let me see what this desk looks like. It's like, the point is, I'm not being present, you know. I'm not being present with her, and she deserves that, and I owe her that, you know, and I owe myself that, like I was saying, right? Because, I mean, yeah, we've been married for 10 plus years now, but, you know, there's still a lot of magic that can happen in this relationship, you know. It's up to me to pay attention though. You know, I think that that's what's important, you know.
And
So
not,
she reminds me, she'll give me a look. Yeah. Yeah.
and not letting the uncertainty that is going on outside of our lives right now, because none of us have any power over anything, right? We have no power over who's looting, who's not looting, what's going on with coronavirus, who's wearing a mask, who's not wearing a mask. I mean, it's just like getting to that place of peace. And so you go outside and you find peace. And luckily it is the summer now, right? And we get to have that extra light.
So nice. So nice.
And meditation, didn't you find meditation in the beginning difficult? Like, were you doing it right? Like, I always question myself. I'm like, okay, I'm sitting here trying to meditate. Did I feed the dog? Oh, the laundry's been sitting in the washer for 3 days.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I still do that, you know. Yeah. I'll still be out there and I'm thinking to myself, you know, is this really helpful? You know, but, you know, it's like, again, you know, I think it's that piece of slowing down, right? That I don't want to, you know? So I think part of it is just, it's discipline, you know? It's like, all right, I'm white knuckling it here right now, but you know what? I have some faith that this is going to pay off. Like this will help me, you know, when I am driving down the freeway and some guy cuts me off, you know, and I'm like, ooh, man, I want to speed up right now and just get behind him and, you know, all that crazy stuff, right? But I'm not going to, right? And I think that the times that I am consistently practicing meditation, you know, even if it's for 5 minutes in the morning, that I find myself doing that less and less. And it's incredible. But like I'm able to focus more, you know, which is cool, you know. So I think it's well worth it, you know. I don't do it every day, but you know, I think that it's certainly there's payoff there.
So something that you said, I just can't get out of my head. So when you went to that first meeting,
Yeah.
might not have been your first meeting, but the round robin meeting, let's say it's your third meeting, whatever.
Yeah, right.
It's in early recovery and you go in
Yeah.
there and somebody calls you out, right? And embarrasses you.
Right.
That is, I know that for so many people would be it. Like that was enough. Cause as alcoholics and addicts, we already hate ourselves, right? We beat ourselves up. We have the largest baseball bat in the head that we constantly do on ourselves. Yeah. And then to be called out by someone that we kind of trusted a little bit, at least for me, I felt like when I first went to, like I put everybody on a pedestal, right? I'm like, they're all, and especially people who had more recovery. Right. And then they call you out and you got over that. But how did you get through that? And then today, like, how do you get through when there are people around you in these places that let you down, but you still keep going back because it happens because we're human, right? Yeah. So how do you do that?
So for me, like if we're going back to that meeting,
yeah,
you know, as I said, it takes what it takes. I wasn't ready yet either. That's the other thing. You know, I'm 20, 21 at the time. I wasn't ready, you know, so that played into it big time, right? I hadn't experienced enough arrests, going to jail. I haven't experienced enough of that yet, right? And loss of jobs, etc., those kinds of things. So, you know, I think what kept me going is that, yes, I did have a good relationship with a therapist at the time who would help me, you know, with some depression and stuff like that, you know, whatever. And, you know, so I'd go back to him and I think I probably told him too, like about what was going on and yada, yada. But, you know, like having support from areas that I didn't expect it was big. So like my parents, you know, even though they drove me crazy, right? You know, they definitely were helpful and God love them. You know, they stuck with me through those difficult times, like where I was like, just get the hell away from me, you know, that kind of thing. Right. So I think today what keeps me coming back, even when I'm not able to access, you know, people in person, it's the literature, man. That's huge for me. You know, the big book, the basic text. I'm an NA guy, so you know, the Living Clean text is an awesome book. My wife, or no, my daughter said to me the other day, because I read it so much, you know, she's like, Daddy, why do you keep reading that same book? I was like, you know, I was like, sweetie, it's so good, you know. She's like, there's no pictures in it or anything like that. I was like, I know. So that's huge. And then I think also today it's a relationship with a sponsor, man. That's huge. It's everything, you know. I have to have that. And at different times in my recovery, I've had, you know, good sponsors, not so good sponsors. And today I think that my recovery looks different than it did, you know, 12, 13 years ago. It's definitely more today, I think, about a spiritual connection for me, and doing the right thing, especially when other people aren't looking. You know, because I get to come home at night and have some, and I don't mean this in a boastful way, I get to have some pride about that stuff. That feels good. You know, it feels really good to do that. And it's taken a while to, I think, get to that sort of place, right? And in life, as we said before this started, you know, life happens. It's going to show up. And there's no guarantees that recovery is going to paint this rosy picture of a life for me, you know. But what it will help me do is get through the times with dignity, respect, and an opportunity to go back and make things right when I have act when I've done something, you know. So I get to live with myself today, you know, in a much better way, you know. And to me, that's great.
And you mentioned spirituality, and I want to just touch on that a little bit because I know that some people come in and they're like, I was raised this, I was raised that. This is
Yeah.
so daunting. Were you raised with any religion?
So it's a funny thing you'd ask that. My mom and dad had very different views on religion. My mom, 100% Italian, Catholic, right? My dad grew up in an Irish household where his father was very, you know, much about, you know, he was like an usher for the church, but his mom had a huge resentment against the church, you know, because I mean, she had 6 kids and, you know, and she was an alcoholic too. So you got 6 kids running around and you can only imagine that he's gone, you know, her husband, my grandfather's gone all the time. He's just, you know, salesman and he's, you know, traveling all the time. So she's got 6 kids to deal with, right? And she had a huge resentment, like, you know, about the church and what she was supposed to do to be a good mom and all that stuff, right? So there was a very conflictual view, I think, of religion and what it looks like. And back to kind of what you were saying about a bad experience in recovery, I think I had a very bad experience with what learning about spirituality can look like, right? So I think that's what good sponsors do anyway, not to get too far off, but I think good sponsors educate their sponsees about what good meetings look like and what not so good meetings look like. And it's up to you, the sponsee, to find out like what a good meeting feels, looks like for you. And I mean, like I knew, you know, as soon as I went to that first meeting in NA, I was like, I'm here, man. This is it, you know? So I've kind of come around, and it's funny you'd say that because I'm married to a Episcopal priest, you know? Yeah. So my wife is an Episcopal priest, and we were having a discussion probably about a month ago where we want to create a ritual each Sunday. We need to get back at it, but each Sunday afternoon, evening, where, you know, we sit down at the dinner table, there's no electronics going on, and we just say, look, you know, to each other, you know, these are things that I love about you, you know, that I really appreciate, you know, about who you are, right? And to me, that's a God thing right there, right? And it's not religious; it's a God thing, you know, where it's like I'm just validating, you know, because I do love you, and these are things that I've noticed this past week that I love about you, you know. And there's no but ands and none of that. It's like, you know, this is it, man, you know. And it's a way to connect, you know, each Sunday to kind of wrap up the week, right? So I don't know. I mean, maybe I'll come back around to something religious, maybe not, you know. But for me, the cool thing is I get to have a big say in what that looks like today.
And it makes it, at least for me, and I'm Episcopalian, so it's kind of cool. And I love it. I actually just went to church with my daughter virtually on Zoom. You know, knowing that we're not alone is a really big thing. I think for getting to become recovered, okay, to become recovered and to become able to live our lives with everything that's going on is to know that maybe there is something actually out there that's bigger than us that I'm going to trust. Because for so long, my booze was my God, right? Like your pills or weed, whatever it was, you know, that becomes your God. And so to replace it with something, and it doesn't have to be so tangible that you have to touch it or anything else. It's just believing that it's out there and you might not be able to see it, touch it, smell it, or feel it, but
right,
it's there.
Yeah. And, you know, as you were saying all that, I was thinking about, there's a line in that Living Clean book basically that says, it can take a long time for us to realize that we have that our lives are our own. They're not anybody else's, right? And I think a big piece of that, of what you're talking about, for me at least, is that God piece, that spirituality piece. That, you know, I gave myself permission. I continue to give myself permission to figure out what that looks like, right? And it changes. It changes each day, each week, each month. And I would also say it deepens. You know, it continues to grow. Where, as you said, we're covered up. You know, I think it's it's my duty, it's my job, I think, as a person in recovery to, yes, carry the message, but also someone who's not even in recovery, just to be an open hand to them and just to welcome them, you know, whatever that looks like, you know, that's just being, I think, a good person, you know, and that's what good people do, right? There's a buddy of mine who says, you know, you know, he says, you know, Zach, you come from good stock, you know, and I was like, it's like, yeah, I guess I do, man. You know, like that lady I was telling you about that had the 6 kids, you know, that was, she started drinking, you know, we called her Bunga. That was my grandmother's name, Bunga.
Oh, I love that.
And Bunga would start drinking around 11 and she'd be passed out by 3. So the kids would come home and all crazy shit's going on in the house at that point, right? But she got 35, 40 years sober before she died, you know? So that is an absolute, I think, testament to this program. And it's a testament to, whether she knew it or not, something bigger working in her life, whether it was her kids, it doesn't matter, you know, but there was something beyond her control or comprehension, right? So it's huge. The spiritual piece is huge.
Well, thank you so much for being so vulnerable and for being here today. I really, really, really appreciate it. I know you have your own. Now, do you do this too? Do you do what I do?
I do. And I have, I think, as much fun as you do, maybe, you know, but I really, you know, the podcast thing is a lot of fun because it's called Recovery Radio. I work for a company called Landmark Recovery here in Louisville, Kentucky. And I get to interview people who are in this field of treatment and also people who aren't. And it's been a pleasure because I get to learn, you know, And I think that's what the recovery process continues to be about, right? Is learning, you know? So yeah, Landmark Recovery Radio, check it out sometime. I'd love to have some guests.
Well, it's so awesome. And, you know, I think especially for a man, it's just so made, and it, not like men or women are that different, let's be honest, but it is cool to see a guy that comes on and he says, you know what, this is what my life was like. And I was running around crazy and I had this guy that took me aside. He fired me. I then had the humility to go and find this guy that I had just tested. And I'm like, go up to him, I'm like, hey, what's up? And he's like, what are you doing here? And like, that is just, it all takes courage. And that's one big thing that I have to say for, you know, being in recovery takes a lot of courage, a lot of chutzpah, you know, and to keep doing it each day at a time. It is amazing. Thank you so much for coming on.
It's been a real pleasure, Bizzy.
You're awesome, Zach. Good luck with all this craziness. I hope you guys stay sane. Keep on that bike. Keep doing all your stuff and your meditating and everything that you need to do to stay zen in each day, because we all know it's challenging. Have a happy 4th of July.
Do the same. It's a pleasure.
Thank you so much. Take care.
Be well.